Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am going to be making 3 different kinds of soups and I'm going to bring you with me and give you the recipes. I know for sure my beef stew recipe is on the blog. I don't think the other ones are on the blog yet, but they will be, but I will link the blog down below. And let's get started. So I had just been sick. I actually got COVID for the first time. I was really hoping I was not gonna get it, but I guess, you know, eventually you do. But thank goodness I did not have that bad of a case and I am feeling better. So soup just feels like the perfect thing to make. It's so comforting for when you're sick and it's easy because you make it and then you just have to warm it up. And it's also just such a great autumn dish. So that's why I wanted to share so that you can start making some soup this autumn too and it'll just be delicious. The first one I am going to show you is my beef stew recipe, which I recorded yesterday. So because I wasn't feeling well the day I recorded this, I did not record any audio with it, but that's why I'm going to do a voiceover. So just there you saw all the ingredients I'll be using. I'm cutting up this small onion and putting it in a baking pan. I'm also going to put the meat in this baking pan and I'm using just regular stew beef. I also put a little bit of lemon juice and garlic powder on top. Now, I decided to put this in the oven because it really tenderizes the meat and soaks in a lot of flavors beforehand. I add beef stock to it as well before putting it in the oven. Now I am cutting up my potato into small cubes and I'm also going to be cutting up a carrot. This is when you'd want to also cut up anything else you might like to add, like different varieties of mushrooms or different bell peppers, anything like that. Like I said, you can really add so much more to this than I am. It's really up to you. But I am going to be adding those things into a pot with some more beef stock and getting that on the stovetop under some medium to high heat. Okay, now it is time to take our beef that was cooking out of the oven, and it is all nice and tender, and we just put it right in to the soup to finish off cooking with the rest of the ingredients. But doing it this way it makes the meat so much more tender. I think it's really worth doing it that way. And then you can see that is it. The next soup is gonna be my butternut squash soup recipe and it's so good. I'm also gonna make homemade bread to go with it, so let's get started with that. I have my slow cooker, which is what I'm gonna be making this soup in today just because it's easier. I have 1 butternut squash. I'm gonna use 2 small apples and 1 big carrot. And I'm going to chop all these up. So I just kind of roughly chopped these things. It does not have to be perfect by any means because we're going to use a hand blender at the end to puree everything. So we got 2 small apples. I would use just 1 apple if it's a quite big one. A carrot and a butternut squash chopped up in here. I'm also going to chop up an onion to throw in here. So I'm going to do 4 cups of broth. I like to use vegetable stock, but I don't think I'll have enough of that on hand, and so I'm going to also use chicken, which is fine. You can use whatever you have, whatever works. You could even use beef if you wanted to. It's all just preference and it all works. We're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, probably like 1/4 of a teaspoon of ginger, and about a little less than a teaspoon of garlic. Now I'm going to do 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little salt and pepper. I just got a little bit of thyme from out in my herb garden that I'm going to add as well. Okay, we're gonna put the lid on that, and I am gonna put it on high, and that should take about a few hours, maybe 3, to cook in there. And after it's done cooking, then we will add our milk and cream, and it should be good, and we'll blend it all up as well. So I'll get back with you on that. With our soup, I decided to also throw together some homemade bread real quick because that'll be perfect, especially for this kind of soup where it's all pureed up, and just to be able to dip that bread into it. It's gonna be so good. Super easy, like doesn't take any time at all. I'm about to put it into the pan, and that is also a recipe that I have on my blog. If you'd like to see, you can head down into my description. Just a tip for you, whenever you have made anything, put it right under the sink and fill it with water, because it is so much easier, like with making bread or making mashed potato, anything like that. It's so much easier if you fill the bowl with water right after, because then cleaning it comes right off. If you don't, it is a struggle. So there's just a quick little tip for you. Now that this has been in here for a few hours, I am going to take my hand blender and completely puree the whole thing so that it's super soft and silky, and then I'm gonna give it a little taste after that. Now that it is all pureed up, I am gonna add a 1/2 cup of milk right to it. You know, I think that is actually pretty much perfect. It has a very good balance between sweet and savory. You could, of course, depending on your preference, make it sweeter or more savory, but for me, that's a very good balance. Yeah, that's really good. I think all that is left is I'm gonna add some heavy cream. So I've already added a 1/2 cup of milk. I think I'll add about a 1/4 cup of cream to it as well. That's perfect. Perfect. All right. I'm gonna leave it in my slow cooker on the warm setting so it just stays nice and warm. And you can serve this with bread, as I am going to do. And there you have it. There is our delicious butternut squash soup. That recipe will be up. I've decided it is that good, and it is my own recipe. And join me tomorrow for the 3rd soup of this week. Hello again, everybody, and we are now on day 3 of making soups. Hot and delicious and very autumnal soups. So this will be the 3rd recipe. This recipe has more of a tomato-y base, and so for the broth I just use a 100% vegetable juice broth as like a V8 juice, but an off-brand. And then I also use a stock, either vegetable stock, or in this case I already have some chicken stock open, so I'm just going to use some of this in it. I always want to use more of this personally because the broth kind of waters down the flavor more than I personally want, so I always try to make sure I put more of my juice. Also, I'm going to put in an onion, a carrot, and some spinach. This recipe also has kidney beans and pasta. I use rotini. Now you can also add things like red pepper or mushrooms. I just personally have a pickier household that I feed, so I don't put those, but they're great additions. Just gonna be starting by chopping all these ingredients up. These ingredients that I want to have more time to cook into the pot. With some broth. So now that this has been cooking for a little bit, I'm going to add my vegetable juice. Spill that a little bit. I'm gonna get a towel. Gotta clean up the messes, which I make many, so it's good to clean right up. Now to this I'm going to add 2 cans of kidney beans. I use the light red ones. And I'm just gonna add my spinach right on top. So now that this has cooked for a good amount of time, I can now add pasta. And I add that last because it soaks up a lot of the juices, so you don't want to, one, you don't want to overcook your pasta, and 2, you don't want it to be completely soaking up into the pasta so that you have like no broth left. So that is why I do that. And then we just let that cook, and then we have a finished delicious soup. And there is our final soup for this video. Absolutely delicious, and I cannot wait to eat it. Thank you for joining me, everyone, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Check out the blog posts for recipes. I'm always going to be putting more recipes on there, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day. See you next time.